Okay. Good. All right, meeting is called to order. Adam Clerk, let's do a roll call. Mr. Betcher. Here. Mr. Morgan. Here. Mr. Duffy. Here. Ms. Taylor. We have a quorum. Madam Clerk, are we in compliance with the open records law?
Yes.
Everyone has seen the agenda. Is there any questions? Moving on to public comments. Is there anybody here who is not on the agenda who wishes to address the committee? Is there anybody online who wishes to address the committee? Hearing no public comments, moving on. Has the committee a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
I move we approve it.
I have a motion from Mr. Duffy.
I'll second it.
A second from Mr. Betcher. And discussion, is there any modifications, additions, or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to Surry County Agricultural Fair Association report. The floor is yours. Probably gonna have to, so what we're gonna have to do, because this is all brand new, slide your chair up. There's a microphone right there. And then if you could sing the national anthem and then proceed with your report.
You don't want that. We did turn in our budget request for this next year. We did ask for more than we have in the past to try and make some needed improvements at the fairgrounds, different things that we've been trying to do on our own, and with all the difficulties of putting on the fair, I've never been able to put money back into it. So that is the reason why we've asked for additional funds this year on top of our normal amount.
Any additional feedback from the fair from last month?
Our numbers were down, I think about 40%. Friday night, the storm that came in right before Chris Cruzy started really hurt us. The bull riding had a really good turnout. That was down a little bit, but there was I think about 1,500 people that came to the bull riding Saturday night. Friday night, the numbers were pretty low. I talked to a lot of people that watched the weather, and they watched the radar, and they were going to come for the concert, and because of the radar, they decided not to come at all. Sunday was a really good turnout with the dirt dash and everything. It went really well Sunday, the way the weather was, and I don't know what our exact numbers were on Sunday, but overall we were down, which was to be expected.
All right, so backtrack just a step here. Can you state your name?
Rick Christian, Surry County Fair President.
Okay. Only reason I have that is because I have some people virtual, and I don't know if they can see or what the deal is. So, any questions for Mr. Christian? Mr. Hoff.
Yeah, Rick, could you just go over what your request was last year as compared to this year? Why the increase? If there is any increase in any of the budgets that comes at the expense of something else with our levy limits that we're under. So, if there is any increase granted to any organization, it would have to come from somewhere else. So could you just describe why you're asking for more money? Sure. And what the
I believe in the past we've always asked for right around 35,000, and I think last year I don't remember if we got 35 or got 31. Yeah, 31,250 is what we got last year. This year we were asking for an additional 10,000 to put back into. We want to build some horse stalls. We want to work on the horse arena. Some of the fences are rotten. It's just a lot of little stuff that have been neglected over the years. So we have volunteers that are willing to help do all the construction, everything that we're going to do up there. And we've gotten some donations from lumber companies that are willing to help us with material. But we've gone through and sat down with the contractor and made a material list and got prices on everything each time. You know, do a little bit here and there, and you know, we were hoping that this year's fair would have been a year that we would have made some money and wouldn't have had to ask for anything. But so that is the gist of the increase, the $10,000 increase from previous years.
Any questions for Mr. Christians? Mr. Betcher?
So you said that attendance was down about 40%. Can you give us a rough estimate on that dollar amount that you were short compared to last year?
I've been trying to get that from my treasurer, and so he hasn't responded to where exactly we are with dollar amounts. I've been asking since the fair got over. But we're, you know, number wise, you know, last year, you know, we're usually about 5,000 or 6,000 people for the whole weekend. In years past, you know, last year, you know, we were about 3,000 people, or this year about 3,000 people. So I mean, I wish I could have gotten that information. When I get it, I can email it out to you guys so you can see it. But yeah, I've been asking.
You're assuming you pulled in probably, you know, 10,000 less than last year. Is that what you're saying? Or maybe
No, probably a lot more than 10,000.
More than 10,000.
No, we're just like the 10,000 we're asking for isn't for the fair itself. It's just improvements on the grounds.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a procurement process, or when you do improvements, do you just have people on staff that can do that, and it's just for?
Yeah, usually myself, or there's some horse people that are involved with the horse project that, you know, we'd get on everybody to volunteer and put in some time, and everybody's been great about, you know, spending their time up there so that we're not actually having to pay contractors to come and do stuff.
Would it be fair to say then that the additional expenses for the materials and not for any kind of labor?
Yep, it's all materials. That's it.
Any other questions from Mr. Christian, Mr. Duffy?
I was asked this to Tom. Do we ever find county fairs that make it on their own? Do they always have to be helped along, or do they ever support themselves as the state?
Don't know about other county fairs at this point.
But I wonder if it's going to be an annual sort of a thing. We always have to subsidize it, or is it going to be something we can hope someday will?
Well, it's our hopes that we're actually making money at the fair and not having to require, you know, the county to help us. Spooner, they have a trust fund. Somebody left them a pile of money, so
Yeah.
you know, they don't charge anybody to even get into the fair. You know, other counties, you know, some of the bigger counties, actually their board members are paid position, so and they don't get money from the county. But that's also, you know, they got a couple 100,000 people in their county. So there's not all the fairs require the county to help them, but quite a few of them do, especially, you know, up here, smaller areas.
Any other questions? Thank you for your report, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on now to the University of Wisconsin Extension Department report.
Okay, my apologies, but this is loaded so you could read it.
So good morning, this is Lori, attending virtually today. So I just am here. If there are any questions, I don't have an actual report for you. I will just tell you a couple things that Sky with 4-H is working on doing a project day, but it's expanded virtually and it's shared among our area 5 counties. And they're working on doing it all week long for the first week of October for 4-H week. So they're working on that. And Ariga told me on Wednesday, I think, that she's helped secure there's a hemp grant that was awarded for $220,000, I think, with LCO. And so she had been working with them to finalize all the grant stuff for that. And they're working on a couple other ones too. And of course, Clean Sweep is right around the corner. So I don't have anything else that I wanted to share with you, but wanted to be available in case you had questions today.
Were you able to submit a budget request, Mr. Hobb?
Yep, that was submitted back in probably July, I believe.
Do you have an idea if that's status quo or you
Yep,
got for less or what?
yep, pretty status quo. I think I shared with you all last week in the, or sorry, last month in the packet, kind of the bottom line for 2021, excuse me, 2021. The total projected 2021 budget for extension is about 115,000. 16 of that is for county support staff. That's estimation, of course. There's a projection from LCO reimbursement for Ariga's position. They have always paid a third of her position that was established years and years ago. And so for the 3.5-ish educators with extension, you pay about almost $74,000 for the 3.5 educators, and then the rest is for program supplies and all of that. So there is a little bit of an increase in the contract this year, but you are also getting some back this year from our furlough days. So, which is almost the same amount actually.
Any questions for Lori? Hearing none, Lori, thank you for your report.
Sure.
Moving on now to Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau.
Good morning, Surry
Morning.
Beckman, Executive Director of Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. We requested the same amount, 50,000. I submitted our financials and stuff in July to Mike. So some of the things I wanted to talk about was, with the pandemic, it's been very different the way people are reaching out to us. Of course, room tax is down first and second quarter. The resorts are actually pretty busy. And we think it's because people can be in a cabin by themselves with their family units. Some of the motels are struggling because they're only like at half capacity. So there's kind of a mix on how the lodging is working right now. We, people are really taking notice of us. People who were planning to go to Canada are coming here to fish. We, since I did some numbers from March to August, and we have mailed out 852 more vacation guides than we did a year ago. So people are definitely looking at us and like, hey, we've never been to Hayward before. And I think it's because of all the marketing we've been doing for several years that we were planted in their minds because of what we had been doing prior to the COVID. So we are $1,700 over budget on just on postage because we're mailing a lot more than we're used to. I don't know if you guys have any questions. When we budgeted about 35% less for income than last year, and it's coming in that way. I still have some people who haven't confirmed if they're going to rejoin or not, but we're right about at that 35% less.
Any questions for Ms. Beckman? Especially.
You said hotels are at half capacity. What does that mean?
A lot of them are choosing because the rooms are right next to each other.
So they're choosing that. So
Yeah, to make
then
their,
they're partially their own fault then if they're.
well, they're trying to make their guests comfortable. So if they were
Okay.
packing them
I
in,
just
they,
didn't know if that was some sort of mandated, something that I was not aware of. Okay.
no, they're just trying to do what makes their guests feel comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
For how?
Yeah, just keep in mind as we go through the budgets, as you recall, and, well, people who've been on the committee will recall, but for Jesse's sake especially, the budgeting for the Visitors Bureau and also the Economic Development Corporation, there's some history there. Both of those have been funded through a different fund, the Resource Development Fund. And there's not enough money in the Resource Development Fund to continue that activity. In the Visitors Bureau case, we had moved that to the Resource Development Fund, the funding source for that, in anticipation of some room tax dollars generation to help offset their budget costs. And then the county would get out of funding the Visitors Bureau. Last year, the board elected to continue funding the Visitors Bureau at the $50,000. This year, to continue doing that, since there's no money in the Resource Development Fund, that $50,000 would need to come out of the operating fund of the county. So currently, their contribution from the county is being funded by tax dollars in the operating fund. So that $50,000 that's in there is part of the reason, that our budget is higher this year than last year. And so to fund that at the $50,000, it's going to take away some other operating expenses that we had prior. So if there's any questions on that, I can entertain those as well.
Mr. Duffy.
Tom, with all these increases, where do you plan to cut? Anybody getting less or how?
Well, as we had discussed prior, some of the capital items that are being funded by operating costs or operating tax dollars would be funded by issuing debt rather than operating levy. So that frees up some operating levy to increase or to pay for some of these things that had currently been paid for under the operating levy before. So things like squad cars or other capital items, those long-term items that you can legally issue debt for, we would be issuing debt for that, which then frees up that operating room for other things such as this.
So there was, from a discussion from last year, Mr. Duffy, weren't we having a discussion with the Birkebeiner Foundation that they were, in lieu of us not imposing a trail tax or some kind of user fee, that the Birkebeiner was going to try to help either fundraise or to do something to help offset some of our other, not incidental costs, but is that still a viable option?
I think so, yeah. We should have Ben here next month.
That would be good. I think we were asking him for like the contribution with the different silent sports of like $35,000 to help either refund or to offset some of the county costs because of the cooperation. I mean, there's been a history of cooperation between the county and the Birkebeiner. There's a time when the Birkebeiner was dependent on the county, and now the Birkebeiner is more independent, but there's been some actions that have done to benefit the Birkebeiner, so maybe we can reciprocate, given that we are now in unusual times. Any other questions for Ms. Beckman? Thank you for your report. Thank you for your budget submission. Northwest Regional Planning Commission report. We have Mr. Sheldon with us.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me well?
You have the floor.
All right, thank you. Again, this is Sheldon Johnson, Director at Northwest Regional Planning Commission. It's great to be with you virtually today. I appreciate the opportunity and time. So two things I just wanted to cover a little bit is as requested on the levy amounts. So you have in front of you the letter from the Planning Commission earlier this summer requesting 2021 membership levy contributions. Surry Counties is at $35,552. That's a decrease of $119 from the year prior, from 2020. Most of you recall how the Planning Commission membership levy is distributed based on equalized value in the counties. Currently, Surry County has the highest equalized value amongst the 10 counties, and proportionally out, the $211,830 across the 10 counties is apportioned out based on equalized values. The $211,830 as the total contribution from the county members has been the same since 2011. So that hasn't changed for a number of years. So that's the Planning Commission side. And then there's also a household hazardous waste contribution that the counties provide to that program. Most of you are aware of that program and perhaps even have used the program. We have Surry County's HHW event coming up here later this September. Ariga helps coordinate that with a couple of our other staff here in the office. That contribution is $8,587. We've seen this calendar year under the HHW program more volume of people and materials coming in. Unlikely, or most likely due to the pandemic, people just cleaning and doing more, getting rid of things. So, we take all those chemicals from residents, people who have it for residential household hazardous chemicals, can bring those to this event for free and get rid of it. Your funds that you contribute to this are matched with towards a DATCAP grant that we use to offset the overall program. So those are the two financial contributions that we're seeking as part of the budget. I'll just brief you just on a few other things that we're got going on. Ken Pearson here in the office is working with a business in Surry County who we hope to use one of our first new EDA revolving loan fund dollars that we received through the CARES Act most recently. Business that Ken's been working with. We have another business as well in the region. We'll be tapping into that $1 million that we received from them. So Ken, I think, has mentioned in the past, we received a $1 million EDA revolving loan fund for economic development activity loan fund. We'll administer that here as part of the Planning Commission, and we have 2 years in which to expend that $1 million. If we don't spend all of it, the feds will just keep the remaining portion that we did not spend. And lastly, we're working with the Berkey Foundation. We will be applying, the Planning Commission will be applying with them on a telemark project through USDA for, we believe it to be about a $250,000 grant request that will help them do some placemaking and planning for some future telemark developments. So that's my brief report.
Any questions for Mr. Johnson? Mr. Hobb?
Nothing.
We have, so I'm assuming, just because you submitted your budget request to Mr. Hobb, correct? Sheldon?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You submitted your budget request to Mr. Hobb?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Hearing no other questions, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your report.
Yep, thank you.
Moving on to Economic Development Corporation report. We have Mr. Gardner and Mr. Morgan.
Just state your name. My name is Mike Gardner. I'm the Executive Director of the Sawyer County Lac-Courte Economic Development Corporation. Since at our last meeting, I updated you all on a wide range of activities that the corporation has going on. Since then, we have made application to be a pilot community for a WIDA Rural Affordable Workforce Housing Initiative. That went in the last day of August. WIDA will be conducting community virtual interviews, which I'm in high hopes that we will be one of them in September. The 3 pilot communities that they will select will be announced in October. So we're really fortunate to get a high level of input from a long list of people, and we put together a pilot design team in that regard. I'll just go over who would be on that, who committed to being on that. For Sawyer County Government, Tom Hoff, Lac-Courte Tribal Governing Board, Glenda Barber. Sawyer County Housing Authority, Sheila Young. Lac-Courte Housing Authority, Marcy Bouget. People's Bank Midwest and the Economic Development Corporation be Mike Stamp. City of Hayward, Jim Miller, and builder developer Jeremy Hill. So that was been the activity primarily over the last 30 days. As we look to next year and our funding request, we're in the process of developing an Economic Development Administration grant application that would cover the majority of the priorities identified in the corporation's strategic plan. And the budget request is the same as last year, I believe. And what, what the board's really striving to do is become considerably more self-sustaining. The transition from current reality to that does require a certain amount of support. Just for example, an economic development administration grant requires match, 50 or 20%, depending on your circumstances. We're trying to get clarity on where we stand in that regard. But just that initiative alone would really make a big difference. So that's, one of the top things that we're working on right now. We've had a very active year. You've seen the annual report, which does a nice job of highlighting everything over the last fiscal year, how the organization has leveraged county support to date. And we're looking to begin an active membership drive, get more members that'll commit to a number of years, so we can be in a lot better position to leverage any funds we get. Obviously, grants are sometimes a long shot, but with the track record that the organization has and all of the organizations in Sawyer County have been working on, we have some of the data that exists from the census and stuff. We have all the right stuff to document our need. It's just finding the right fit that works to identify the county's and the tribe's top priorities. It isn't sort of a chase the money, wag your dog sort of thing. We really need to stick to the key items that will make a difference here in our community, both for business and quality of life. But I think having economic development corporation that's a nonprofit corporation, that gives us a major tool to work with private business, work with county government, county departments, the tribe to really begin to fill in the voids that we need to make a sounder countywide economy and to make the organization more self-sustaining. Troy, was there anything that you'd like to
No,
add?
and the one thing that is different, and I know we've discussed this before, and that's something that would have to be decided. We are asking, just as we were asking our new private contributors for a 3-year commitment. Part of that is, obviously that could change if we were to get some type of grant, but part of it is what we've discussed in this committee over the last couple of years, is that it's very difficult to attract and keep talent to run the organization when we're not sure. We want to be able to continue to have a staff, and if there's only X amount of money, then it's happened in the past where the funding went away or whatever, and we were no longer able to run the organization. So that's the rationale for the ask on the budget for the 3-year commitment. That may or may not happen. We understand that.
Some of the products that were the result of recent years that really made a big difference in our case, for example, in this housing initiative, was the 2018 Sawyer County Housing Study that was done by EDC with your support. The Lac-Courte Band has just come out with a community-wide assessment that took a couple years, very rich in data for their community, and aligns very nicely with that housing study. A lot of the data that's coming out from the assessments positions us well. And of course, you hear quite a bit recently on the television about the term opportunity zones.
We don't know who's going to come on in the next election cycle. We can help not commit that, but I mean, if we're going to make a commitment to economic development, then I think something substantive should be put in place.
Sure. So perhaps 2018, 2019, 2020 in terms of the breakdown?
However, this is your client. What would you do to best present them to the entire board? We're going to be looking at trying to figure out where the cuts are going to come from, and I got to say this: our colleagues are going to pick on this committee the most because we have the most. We have the smallest amounts, and it's the way that our contributions are. It's really dispersed, and we're trying to share that among different counties. And so there's going to be this inclination to say, well, let Spawner, let someone else pick this up because we don't have it this time, and we need to maintain this level of commitment. So it's incumbent upon us as committee members to be the best prepared when it comes in, because we're going to be probably the one that's going to be besieged the most. And so if we have more information on our side to go in there, I think that makes the argument a little bit easier.
Certainly.
Any other questions? And any other questions for Mr. Gardner from the committee? Any other questions for Mr. Gardner or Mr. Morgan regarding Surry County Economic Development Corporation? If not, you submitted your budget request to Mr. Hoff.
We have.
Mr. Hoff, do you have anything you wish to add?
Just in general, just kind of wrapping up the budget discussions in general, as the chair just said, this committee in particular has discretion on, these entities that report to us. As we build the budget, a lot of things that the county does are mandated by the state, and we're required to provide certain services, and we need to fund those services. The county can also contribute money to organizations, and only certain things can the county contribute to, and there's statutes that allow the contributions you're making to the entities that you do fund and have funded in the past. So those are things that the statutes allow for you to spend money on, but you're not required to spend money. And so that's part of the discussion that Mr. Schlander was just stating, is that there is some discretion in the funding levels that you provide. So, you might want to have some more discussion about, economic development and, the Visitors Bureau done so in the past. So those are some of the things that you need to consider as we kind of build the budget and fund the things that we are required to do and that you have discretion and opt to do as well.
Anything else? So we have 2 new members to this committee this year, and unfortunately, we don't have the time frame to help them grasp the matrix of how these separate committees, how these separate entities contribute to the county. And so sometimes I feel that that's almost a detriment for us, because there's vital services. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Beckman, Lori, can't say your last name, I keep forgetting how to say your last name, but they have in the past come in and made presentations on the different segments of what they contribute. And I think it's vitally important that we keep that in mind, that even though the dollar amount doesn't compare to like the larger issues like public health and public safety, it makes as vital as a contribution. And if we say that we're dedicated to having tourism as being one of our lifeblood, we need to make sure that we've got a viable economic opportunity for people to come here. And this is the method and how that comes together. So, any other questions for Mr. Morgan, Mr. Gardner? Thank you for your report. Thank you for your submission. Moving on now to item 11, future agenda items. Is there anything from the committee members that they wish to have added to the agenda for the next month or future agenda items? Mr. Duffy, if we can get Mr. Poppy in here, or is it Pop? Pop. If we can get Mr. Pop in here, and we can see what we can do to help strengthen and reciprocate the support that the county and the Birkebeiner have done for each other over the decades. I think that might help alleviate some of the pressure that we're going to have here when this budget comes forward. Other matters for discussion only. Mr. Duffy.
How about the Water Depot? Did anybody have a chance to go down there for the grand opening? I missed it. I wasn't watching that. I think it was this weekend, wasn't it?
It was on Friday.
Okay.
I attended.
You were there?
Yeah.
Good crowd, or?
Well, they had speakers sequentially all day long, and it seemed like at the hour I was there, it seemed like people came for the speaker they wanted, whether it was elk, fishing, whatever, but the parking lot was full the whole time I was there. And being sort of a linear, tighter space, they kept it very proper as far as bunching people together, but yeah, it seemed like it was really well received.
And financially, Tom, did they raise all the money, or the county obligated for any more of that?
The county is obligated, you made an appropriation for some contingency money if they came over on a couple of things, and they did submit some requests which were paid out of that contingency. You allocated 15,000, but they only used a portion of that, and I don't have the final numbers. They just finalized everything, but it was somewhere in the middle of that, I think. But yeah, they did a lot of fundraising efforts besides that, and I think that it's really a wonderful building from the looks of it. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing else, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.